Hello and welcome to this little series of videos on planning your SC4 degree and refresher videos on how to actually officially register in the Service Center. I'll be breaking this up into a couple of videos. This first one, we're going to just kind of go through the basics of what you're considering each time you're registering as far as what classes to take and how to plan out your degree. And then we'll look at planning your degree offline. So using like the degree worksheets, which everyone has probably seen at this point, but we'll go through it and kind of refresh your memory on that. So just to begin, whenever you are planning for registration, this is kind of the stuff that you should be considering. So obviously choosing what classes you should take, and there are topics and things to consider when choosing those classes that we'll get into. And then we'll go through a refresh in the second video of how to actually do that in the Service Center. So there are tools that you can use for planning. So when you're planning out your program of study, or specifically you're planning which classes to take next semester or in following semesters, you can do that offline or you can do that in the Service Center. And probably the best way is to use some combination of both. And we'll talk about pros and cons of each. Basically preparing for opening day and getting everything set up in your Service Center. That's what will come in the second video. And then how to actually confirm that you are fully registered. So every semester when you're choosing your classes, these are the things that you should be considering. So first and foremost, what are the courses that are needed for your degree? That requires having some knowledge of what degree you're pursuing and then the requirements for that degree. Do you qualify for the course? Like, have you taken the prerequisites or have you placed into it with the AccuPlacer or SAT scores? Is it a prerequisite for later courses? So that's something where in your 11th grade year, you can kind of just be taking some early basics, but in 12th grade, you often really need to start thinking about taking stuff in the 12th grade semesters to set you up for things that you will need later on in your 13th year. There's also considerations there where some classes are only offered in the fall or only offered in the winter. So I'll try to point out some examples of that and how to find that out. Another big factor is how will it transfer to other schools? And that requires knowing a little bit about where you might want to transfer and what you might want to do. So that will be something I'll show you, kind of different ways to find that out. And do you need to take the course for high school graduation requirements? There is that flexible option. There's pros and cons to that as well that we'll get into. Does it fit your schedule? Is mainly just kind of the guidelines that you have in 11th and 12th grade years as far as what you can do in coordination with your high school schedule. And then lastly, do you think you'll enjoy the course? Sometimes you have room just to take electives of things that you're interested in or things that sound interesting, but you don't really know much about. When you have room for electives, that's definitely something to consider. Although I would kind of push back that there are some courses that maybe we're not going to enjoy, but it is a requirement for the degree or it is a prerequisite for later things. So we'll get into all of that. So first and foremost, what do you need to earn an associate degree at SC4? So all degrees have certain requirements in order to actually complete the requirements. So the first thing are the actual degree program requirements. So those would be those required courses like the humanities, social science, English, math, those kinds of specifics. The applied degrees have a really specific list of degrees, and we're going to look in a little bit more detail at the actual degrees in a moment. And then completing that minimum of the 60 to 62 credit hours or whatever your degree requires. That does vary. Some even go up to like 63 to 66 credits, depending on what you're going into. All of that needs to be done and finished with a GPA of a 2.0 or above. So you could get all of your credits, you could check off every requirement, but if your GPA is a 1.99, then you would have to take one more class or however many it takes for you to get that GPA above a 2.0 in order to graduate and get that associate degree. And then everyone's kind of doing this, but you must, in order to get an associate degree at SC4, have to complete at least 18 of those credits at SC4. So this is kind of more for students that are transferring into SC4 from other community colleges or maybe transferring back from a four-year school. This could apply if you were doing reverse transfer later on, but pretty much everyone will have at least 18 credits done at SC4. And more likely you'll be up in that 60 to 65 credit hours complete. So there are pages on our website to help you in your planning, and these videos are being created now and will be put on a couple of these pages. So we used to have kind of some older videos that disappeared when there was a website update. So I'll show you these pages, and the one thing that we will access right now, and it is all updated, are the scheduling documents and links. So when we go over to our website, bluewatermiddlecollege.org, we'll take you here. This is our home page. If you have not checked out this page, I would invite you to kind of scroll through here. There are just kind of some basics, some frequently asked questions, basic information. We have student spotlights here. You can always view the calendar here to see what things are coming up. Well, I guess you would need a login. I'll have to come back to that. I will have to show that another time, I guess. But the calendar would be fixed in there, hopefully by the time you're going to look after you're watching this video. So the main stuff that you'd be working with as a current student are under the student tab. We're specifically, this video will be located under planning for your degree. There's nothing there right now. SC4 registration, right now we do have kind of some basic instructions, and these videos are being made in preparation for fall 2023. So this might be a time capsule for students that are coming back to this in later semesters. But we have just kind of the basic instructions here. So if you're pretty familiar and just need a refresher, this is another way to kind of just refresh your memory on the steps to adding stuff to your schedule and actually officially registering. Where we're going to get a look at right now are the scheduling documents and links. So the degree worksheets for the big transfer degrees are listed here. And then we'll look at some other course or other degree programs that are more applied degrees that we don't have kind of these worksheets for. You would use the SC4 worksheets for that. While we're on the topic, I'll pull some of these up. The Associate of Arts and Associate of Science are the two main things we're going to look at, along with the Michigan Transfer Agreement, which, if you recall, when you get these worksheets, the science is green, the arts is kind of an orangey yellow. And on the back of each of those, the Michigan Transfer Agreement guidelines are there. The other thing we're going to look at is this program of study template. We have this template that kind of lays out what you're taking each semester. I actually prefer a different one that lets you, we do have a Word doc that we'll upload there as well, because this you can actually download and you can kind of start typing your own stuff in there. So those are the main things that we're looking at when we are planning each semester. And we'll go through and talk about each of those in a little bit more detail, but you can see it's as simple as just kind of clicking that and it pops up. So let's see, get back to, I'm going to get rid of that template. Another thing, the math pathway chart will be here. It is currently updated. A big thing that we are planning for in this time, planning for fall of 2023 semester, is that SC4 is going through a course number change for all of their math courses and have created a new English course. So that will be all of the information about that is currently in the videos that were made during the success sessions for current 11th and 12th graders. So if you're here from that time, then there is going to be a separate video about the math, but right now you can find those in your success session videos that were made from the Zoom meeting. But those will be helpful documents to use in kind of an ongoing next few semesters or even next couple of years. So we will come back to that, but we've got all our documents gathered, and that would be kind of the first step when you are planning each semester and figuring out what to take. Is just gathering up, okay, what degree am I working on? That would be obviously important to know. And if you had chosen something when you first applied to SC4 and first came into the Blue Water Middle College, but you have since changed your mind, you can reach out to me and I can help you figure out what would be the right degree for you to be doing at SC4 based on what you want to do for a career later on. If you are totally undecided about what you would like to do, the Associate of Arts is what SC4 and we recommend you to be working on if you're undecided. If you are undecided, but you do like science and you're thinking something maybe in that direction, you're just not really sure what, you could also be working towards that and kind of just taking a little bit more science instead of the arts is a little bit more focused on like social studies, social science classes, and humanities. And again, we'll get into more detail on those in a moment. If you know that you are working on an applied degree, so really that's anything other than those degrees listed there, the arts or science, there is a full list of the SC4 degrees at this shortcut. Of course, it's not going to pop up, or it's just my internet is taking a moment here. There we go. It's thinking. So each year, the course catalog is updated and is listed on the SC4 website. So you could always go to catalog.sc4.edu to find that. And then you can use this drop-down menu to select which catalog you're working with. I'm going to use the most current 2022-2023 catalog. This will be updated in the 23-24 school year. And with these changes to the math, that'll all be reflected in the new catalog. But just when you're looking in general, you can look at the different programs of study. That will take you back to the page where we just started. You can look at course descriptions, and that'll bring you through to actually like the full list of everything that's offered. It's just all alphabetical. When you're looking at the course catalog, this is listing everything that SC4 has offered anytime recently. And that might even be considered into like the last 3 to 5 years. Everything is listed here. So this is an example. Communications media is still listed in the catalog, but very rarely do they actually offer some of these classes. So this would be something to kind of get some ideas, see what's out there, but just be careful before you get your heart set on a certain class to find out each semester if it's actually offered. And I'll show you where to find that as well. Another way that actually we can look at the current catalog or the schedule is to go to sc4.edu/schedule. This is also something you can access right in the service center, and I'll be showing you how to do that as well. But this is where you can actually search based on what term you're looking at. Right now we're planning for fall, but fall registration is not open, so that's not listed as an option. But let's say if we were planning for winter, you can put in the semester there, and then you could say, okay, I want to actually know what business classes are going to be offered this upcoming semester. So you can just select the course and the semester. You can keep it very vague. Once you're here, you can start searching by if you prefer it to be online or you prefer it to be in person. In person would be selecting the Port Huron campus. Once registration is up and running, you may want to just narrow it down to things that are open now. So courses that are not already full. But you can kind of click through and see that. When you're searching, you can also see how many seats are available. So this little thing will tell you those numbers the first number means that there are 0 seats available. There was a capacity of 23 seats. And currently there's 0 people on the wait list. So that makes sense because this is a semester that's already currently in progress right now. That's just kind of a little head start to the searching to see what is actually available currently. This is another good example where let's go to that communications media that was the example I showed you, that when you are looking, you can still look at everything that's out there in the catalog. But when there's no option here to click for the sections, that basically means it's not really offered. So these would be something I wouldn't be surprised if they eliminate pretty soon, potentially in the next catalog. So that's kind of just the first little basic of how to do that searching. When you are looking at your degree, let's go back to where we started here. and go to this programs of study. That's where this link brought us here. It was just kind of a shortcut link that we made. So this is where, if you are doing anything other than the arts and science, this is where you would want to look for those worksheets. So let's use maybe criminal justice for an example. And I wanted to point out too, in this list, they have, you can see, there's the name of the program and then SS or AAS listed after that. So if you are looking for the actual applied associate degree, you would want to be working on the AAS page. These SS, these are called skill sets. Those are kind of a shorter list. Like, for example, this criminal justice generalist skill set is just a smaller group of classes that you can get kind of a notification or like a designation on your transcript that you have completed a skill set. So this could be good for somebody that's like, I'm kind of interested in criminal justice, but I want to do just the general arts degree because I'm not positive that that's what I want to do. You can do this smaller set of classes, and basically you would get the Associate of Arts associate degree, and then they would add onto your transcript that you've also completed the criminal justice generalist skill set. So this is something that if you're interested in, I would definitely say reach out to us at the Blue Water Middle College and we can help you with that, or meet with an SC4 advisor. But no one should be just shooting only for those skill sets. Everyone should be working towards an associate degree. So using the criminal justice example, for the actual associate degree, you would want to click on the one that ends in AAS. So this is your associate in applied arts and science. So just a note on applied degrees, these are wonderful because most of the applied degrees at SC4 are just meant to be, they actually call them terminal degrees, which sounds actually sort of bad, but it means a good thing, is that you take this associate degree, you complete this 2-year program, and it's a pretty specific list of courses. There's not much room for electives. In the case of this criminal justice degree, they actually have electives, but it has to be classes from this approved criminal justice electives list. So it's not like you can just take History 101 and it will count. It means it has to be from this list. So you can see there's not much room for anything other than what is listed here. That would be the case for most of the applied degrees, that it'll be a more specific list of classes, but it's meant to give you a lot more direct, hands-on, introductory, entry-level information so that you can get started in that career field. The applied degrees are meant that you do your 2-year degree and you start working, and it typically sometimes can be fairly entry-level work that you're getting into, but it's a quicker route to the workforce. The downside of these is that these degrees don't always transfer as well. So criminal justice is kind of a rare exception where there are some bachelor's degrees where these feed really well into that. But for the most part, criminal justice and the associate in business transfer are really the only two that do feed pretty well into a bachelor's program. The CIS, Computer Information Systems Programming degree, can also be paired pretty well and go into a 4-year school bachelor's degree. But for the most part, everything else is just kind of meant to be, you get your 2-year degree and you start working. So like if you're thinking about transferring and majoring in engineering, getting a bachelor's in engineering, a lot of times we see students select one of these engineering technology degrees. And I do understand that it's kind of misleading, but this is more of the hands-on, you'd be doing the hands-on work in an engineering field. So something like mechatronics, precision machining, welding, engineering graphics and CAD. This could be an entry-level route into kind of an engineering firm or a company, but you'd be doing kind of just the basics. You'd be doing drafting instead of doing the actual engineering design. So if you're thinking about being a engineer where you're in electrical or mechanical or something like that, engineering, you would actually want to do the Associate of Science instead. But you could incorporate some of these classes depending on what field you're thinking about going into. So again, if you're thinking about any of these applied degrees, it would probably be worth a conversation with either an SC4 advisor or me specifically, Ms. Whymer. And we could talk about, is that the right fit for what you want to do for a career? Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. Or sometimes we might combine some of the classes that are on these applied degrees with the more general transfer degrees, like the arts and the science. The business degree is one that I want to point out because this is one where it is a pretty specific list of classes that you have to take. And this would be if your goal is to get a bachelor's in business or a business field later on. So this would be like if you were going to major in accounting, economics, supply chain management, marketing, HR, human resources, anything in the business field, you'd be getting a bachelor's in business to get into that. And the business transfer is what you would want to do to prepare yourself for that. So again, it's a specific list of classes, but this degree has quite a bit of room for electives, which can be anything. So you could take that and just take a bunch of business classes. But what I recommend is that if you're planning to move on to a 4-year school, your elective credits should be used to pair this with the Michigan Transfer Agreement. So we'll look at that actually right now. So the Michigan Transfer Agreement is here. It is on the back of the arts and science degrees. And basically all of the 4-year schools, or almost every 4-year school in Michigan, has said, if you check off these requirements, we are going to consider that your general education requirements are done. So when you transfer on to a 4-year school and get a bachelor's degree, whether you are majoring in engineering, psychology, education, social work, whatever it is that you're going to major in at a 4-year school, everyone at a 4-year school is still, for the first couple of years, doing a little bit of everything. And that would be the general education requirements. So that is one of the bigger goals of a community college, is to help students achieve or complete these general starting out basic introductory classes for a lot cheaper. That's kind of one of the main goals of a community college. And ideally, you go to a school like SC4 where you take these classes and they transfer really well to the 4-year schools. So you might take these classes, and when they transfer one by one, individually, the courses transfer, you might end up completing the general education requirements anyway, just because you're kind of doing the basics at SC4, which are similar to the basics at the 4-year school. But this is a way to guarantee that it checks those off. Once in a while, it does help a student or save you a class or two. Some schools might have a specific requirement for like a university course that everyone takes, like maybe like an introductory or a seminar course. Sometimes there's like diversity or cultural requirements. And that would be similar to the classes you're taking, but it'd be like a specific class that's only offered there. There's also sometimes language course requirements at various schools. And sometimes those are just part of the general education or university requirements. So that would be what this could complete for you. So it's an option here, but you wouldn't be required to take it there. It doesn't give you credit for that course that you haven't taken, but it would just waive it from you having to take it. Some of those requirements might still be listed in the bachelor's degree or your specific major. Like, for example, I know a lot of schools will require language courses, but it's actually part of the major. So when it's part of the major, these MTA requirements or the gen ed stuff, it won't complete it in that sense. You would still have to do it for your major, but it could help you if it was just a general education requirement. So these classes, English 100 or 101, this is the new class that will be explained in a separate video. Basically, you're taking 2 English classes. So you're doing English Composition 1, which you will either do with 100 or 101. You would not take both of these. You would do 100 or 101, and then you would do 102. They do for the MTA have the option of English 102 or Speech 101, but most of the degrees in SC4 require English 102, and actually most degrees at the four-year schools do as well. So that's what I would recommend is English 100 or 101, and then go right to 102. You also have 2 social science, 2 humanities, 2 science, 1 including a lab. And when you have these 2 requirements for these groups, they have to be from 2 different disciplines. So what that means is, for example, social science, you wouldn't be able to take 2 psychology classes to check that requirement off. It would have to be psychology in another subject like anthropology, or political science and sociology. It has to be 2 different starting like subject areas. So the ANT or PSY. The sciences, most of the classes do have labs embedded into them, and it will say that on the course description. But if you have questions about that, you should definitely ask. And then from your math pathway, they will allow basically what the equivalent of 104, 113, or 120 or higher. Those are the courses that count for the math for the MTA, but you would want to pay attention to what your degree is requiring, because, for example, Math 104 or the old version of that doesn't count for the science degree. It only counts for the arts degree. So we've kind of worked all the way around, but let's look at the Associate of Science and the Associate of Arts. So I'm going to scroll out so you can see the bigger picture, and then we'll scroll back in to get into detail. So when we scroll out, you can see the social science, humanities, science, math, English are the same for both. The only difference for those categories is that the math is a little bit different between the arts and the science. So previously, you were able to take Math 104, 113 or higher. So kind of like 104, 113, 120 or higher. But for the science, it was only just 113 or higher. So 113 or 120 or higher. 113 is pre-calc. 120 is statistics. Math 104 is called Foundations of Math. So those new numbers are listed there. 1100 is what was formerly Math 104. There's some courses with support that are included. 1120 is formerly known as Math 120, that was statistics, and 1130 is the former Math 113 pre-calculus. So again, if you have more questions about the math, you would want to access one of the success session videos for right now, or there will be a separate video posted on that for later semesters. So the big difference here are the additional course requirements. But the social science, humanities, science, math, communication / English, those are what also complete the Michigan transfer agreements. So if you complete the requirements for the degree, you are also completing the Michigan transfer agreement. The other difference, and one other thing to point out, is that those grades need to be a C or higher. So they have to be a C or higher to count for the degree requirement, and they have to be a C or higher to count for the MTA. All courses pretty much need to be a C or higher in order to transfer to the four-year school. So that's why those requirements are set for that. So if you happen to take political science and you get a D, that doesn't mean all is lost. It will still count for an elective, and those 3 credits will count towards your total degree requirements of 60 credits, but it just won't count for your social science requirement or one of those courses. So to scroll kind of closer back in and look at it in detail, the additional courses for the science are, you just need 2 more courses from this list. They include the CIS classes that are included here are programming classes. So if you were thinking about going into computer programming, they give you that option. They do include the higher level math, like Math 114 is Calc 1 or higher. And then some other specific science requirements here can count. So typically, if somebody's going into a science field, you will probably end up taking more than just the 4 classes that are required between these 2 categories, but that's the minimum for the degree. For the arts degree, the additional courses are basically this long list here, which are all of the social science and humanities options, but they also add in a couple other categories like criminal justice and graphic design. So both of those are nice that they're included, because if you're thinking about going into one of those fields, but you know you want to move on to a 4-year school and get a bachelor's in that field, then you would want to do the Associate of Arts and just do a bunch of criminal justice as part of your apply or your additional courses, or a bunch of graphic design if that was the path you wanted to take. In this degree also, from your 2 social science, 2 humanities, and 4 additional courses, so that's 8 classes, they want at least 2 of those to be at a 200 level or above. So you can see like Econ 221 is an example of one that would count. These literature classes, English 202 or higher. There's a whole bunch of a few CJ classes that count as a 200 level or higher, some art classes, some of the graphic design are 200 level, a bunch of the psychology, political science, sociology. So there are definitely quite a few options for that. So that's kind of the basics for those degrees. Something I want to point out again is that if you're totally undecided, the Associate of Arts is a great place to start, and just kind of working your way through the MTA portion of the associate degree is the way to go, to kind of just get some basics done and buy yourself some more time before you have to kind of make some decisions or figure things out. But you can finish this a whole associate degree and stay undecided, but that would be something that you'd obviously want to be a little bit clearer on before you transfer onto a 4-year school, because you'll kind of be forced to choose a major once you transfer. For the Associate of Science, this is a good one if you are thinking about going into engineering, anything pre-med, like if you want to be a doctor and go to med school, if you want to be a PA, a physician assistant, if you want to go into physical therapy, occupational therapy, anything where you're doing like a health master's degree after your bachelor's degree, this would be the place for that. Like I said, for the engineering, you're basically going to take all of the math that is offered at SC4, as well as quite a number of these physics classes, whatever you can fit into your 4 years or your 3 years, or for your 2-year degree here. If you are thinking about a pre-med, you will be doing or should do these 4 chemistry classes, and these are a progression. So you have to take 111 before 112, before 215, before 216. So this means you would need to start Chem 111 in the fall of your 12th grade year in order to fit all of those in. You also need, these are good ones to point out, that Chem 111 is offered either semester, fall or winter, but 112 is winter only, 215 is fall only, and 216 is winter only. So that's why you kind of have to start that in the fall to fit the rest in. Physics are similar, where 121 is fall only, 122 is winter, 221 is fall, and 222 is winter. These other ones, I think depending, one of them is like statics, I think, which sometimes an engineering path would want you to have. And I believe those are winter only, and you would do those at the same time as 222. So I wanted to point that out, because sometimes we see people going into engineering or going into a pre-med thing, but then for their science class, they're taking earth science, which is fine. That would check that requirement for a science off, but it probably wouldn't work towards your ultimate bachelor's degree plan. You'd want to look ahead to see, what does a bachelor's degree want you to have? And for a pre-med, they want you to have a whole bunch of biology and chemistry. So you wouldn't really want to waste your science classes taking astronomy or physical science. For kind of a engineering path, that would be some chemistry, and then pretty much a whole bunch of physics and higher level math. So again, that's where you would want to sort of spend your time and spend your requirements there. So that's the basics for those degrees. So what you'd want to do, and what we always kind of recommend, is in your 11th grade year to start with your social science and humanities, because most of those are good introductory classes where the content's not going to be crazy scary, but it will ease you into the college workload and get you an idea of what that would look like. In 12th grade, you could start incorporating maybe some English, math, science, or working even towards some of these additional courses, depending on what you're going into. And then you'd want to have all this wrapped up and planned out by your 13th year. So this is a great document that helps you plan that out. So this is where you could say, you can really plan out your whole 3 years if you wanted to, and you could keep it pretty vague. Like, for example, if you are thinking about sort of that pre-med option, what I just kind of pointed out is you'd want to take Chem 111 in the fall of your 12th grade year. And this drives me crazy that it indents there. So you might just have to hit that and back up like I'm doing. So you can start sort of mapping these things out that you know that you're eventually going to need. And then you can start working backwards from there. So you can know that these 4 chemistry classes are going to complete your 2 additional courses, and they will complete 1 of your sciences. So you would know one of your sciences will be a chemistry, but then you would know that I'm going to need also a biology of some sort. So maybe you put that out here in your 13th year that, like, I know I'm going to need some bio. I'm not really sure what. So you could just kind of leave yourself some space there, or you could say bio to be determined, bio question mark, not sure which one. So that you know right there, you have your 4 sciences mapped out between your science and your additional courses. When you get started, or all of you are pretty much probably at least in your 11th or 12th grade year, you can start putting in the stuff that you've taken. So let's say you took Psychology 180 along with your seminar, and you got 4 credits for that. So you got 4 credits for your first semester. And then in the winter, let's say you took History 101 and Soc 101. So that finishes your 2 social science classes and starts your humanities, gives you another 7 credits. Add that to what you had before, and you now have a total of 11. So this is where you can start kind of mapping out, I'm going to take my other humanities, but I don't really know which one I want to do, but I know it'll be probably a 3 credit class. And then I'm going to try to place into English 101 and get that going in my 12th grade year. So you can start sort of mapping out your requirements and making sure that you're going to fit them all in. You can say, I'm going to finish my math stuff at the high school in 11th and 12th grade year. And then in my 13th year, I'm going to hopefully take math 120 or 113 or 120. And again, I'm still referring to these as the old numbers. So this would actually be 1130 or 1120. And if you're doing a pre-med path, I keep using that as an example. You'll probably actually need both of those, and potentially calc as well. So this is just kind of to give you some idea of how you can start mapping things out depending on what it is that you want to do. When you are doing an applied degree, it's really important to look at what the prerequisites are. So for example, mechatronics, this is a degree where it's a very specific list of classes. You probably do kind of want to try to work pretty much in the order that things are listed here, but you want to click on every single class and figure out what is the prerequisite. So it's listed here. So for this particular class, which is ETM 130, we need to have ETE 100 or ETM 110 done first. So that's where you would want to plan those in this first year, possibly, so you can take ETM 130 in your 12th grade year. So those are the kinds of things where you really want to look ahead as early as you know that you're doing one of these. Start looking at the prerequisites for everything. And you can see me, and probably should see me if you're thinking about doing an applied degree, and we can work and kind of map that stuff out for you together. So yeah, so reach out to me if you're thinking about doing one of those. We're going to kind of pop back here. That's kind of the basics for how to plan it outside of the service center. As we talked about, you need to make sure you're paying attention to prerequisite classes. Those are listed in the course catalog. Some classes, like these examples, Bio 271 and 272, are the anatomy and physiology, and they require you to have a C or better in the first one before you can move on to the second one. Most classes, you could scrape out even a D- and move on to the next one, but then that would just affect your whether you completed that for your degree requirement. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, this is just kind of that showing that when you're planning everything out, if you're shooting for 60 or more credits for your associate degree, which is what most will require, you would want to try to plan to have at least 30 done by the end of your 12th grade year, so that leaves you enough room to finish your degree in your 13th year with maybe even a little bit of wiggle room, or without having to take the full 17 credit load that we can pay for each semester in your 13th year. To ensure things transfer, you really want to start thinking about what you want to do for a career, what level of education is required, the bachelor's degree that you think you're going to need for that career, and what colleges you think you want to go to. See one of us for help if you know those things. And that will be kind of a separate video where we'll get a lot more in detail on how to look at transfer stuff. But there's a ton of resources out there. You can look yourself at college websites. Like you can look at MSU, you could just Google MSU psychology to see what is required for that psychology degree. Every website or every school sets up their sites a little bit different. So that's where it would be helpful to see one of us that we can help guide you through this. Then you can look at transfer guides or use the michigantransfer.org site to see how things will transfer. Again, meet with one of us, probably particularly specifically me, Ms. Whymer, or an SC4 advisor. I recommend doing both. So I've always worded it that we can help you create your plan. I'll teach you how to make your plan, but we should always double check our plan with the SC4 advisors. So just by the nature of me being the college and career advisor and being the one that helps everyone in the middle college with their transfer plans, that leads to, it with 600 people kind of each year at the middle college, it is human nature that I may make a mistake, or we might make a mistake when we're looking at this together. So that's why it's really, really important that you see an SC4 advisor to double check that and make sure they would catch any mistakes that we've made. Also, you can triple check our plan by reaching out to advisors at the four-year schools, and you do not have to wait until your 13th year to do that. You can start that as soon as you have some ideas about where you want to go and what you want to major in. And then the basics would be to make sure that you're completing the Michigan transfer agreement. So we looked at those requirements. Again, that is built into the Associates of Art or the Associate of Science. It is not built into the business transfer, but you can partner it with that. And that's where one of us can help you with that. If you are using a college class for high school graduation requirement, you need to be very careful with that. I'm always a proponent that just finish your high school stuff at the high school and do your college stuff at the college. That's the best way, is that doing those high school classes at the high school prepare you for the college version of it. So sometimes people want to jump into English and math at the college. That is possible, it's doable, but I feel, and the instructors feel, that you are more prepared for the college level English and math if you have had 4 years of high school English and math. So that is what I recommend for that. There are times though where you might need to take a college class for a high school requirement if you have more requirements left than you have space to finish them. If there's certain electives that you've been taking, like you've been in choir or band or a language, like you want to be able to keep room for Spanish 3 and Spanish 4 or things like that. If there's a quality elective that you want to carry on and continue and you need to make space for that, that is a great reason. Taking your college or your taking college classes for your high school requirements and then just taking kind of blow off classes at the high school is not going to look good in the eyes of the 4-year schools later on when you're applying to those. So if you have questions about that, ask. And if there's a high school class you need but isn't available, like in your first through third or first through fourth hour, depending what year you're in, then that could be an option too, that you could take that at SC4 instead. But that's pretty rare where that happens. Mrs. Barr does a review every year of the students that are moving from 11th grade into 12th grade. She does a review of your high school requirements and then sends a letter home listing out what you have left and how you can complete them by the end of 12th grade. So that would be something to look out for. One thing is that your final year math requirement is something we talk about in the success sessions, but it's basically in addition to the 4 credits of math, you need to have a math course or math experience in your final year of high school, which is your 13th year. So again, do your 4 credits by the end of 12th grade, save your SC4 math class for your 13th year, and that will complete both and all of your requirements. Almost every class that SC4 offers, there are in-person and online sections. Some classes do not have online options, like some of those higher level science classes like chemistry, physics. Those classes you would have to take in person, right? There's no guarantee that you can take every single class online, and I don't recommend it anyway. If you have a challenging subject, like, I'm not good at math, I hate math, it makes me nervous, whatever, you should not be taking that online. You should be taking that in person. And even if those aren't necessarily your challenge subject, English, math, and science are among the most challenging courses at SC4, and I really recommend trying to work your schedule in so that you can take those in person. Most of the times when we are meeting with students who are failing or end up withdrawing from a class, it's not almost always. There's a lot of in-person sections that people struggle with too, but a lot of times it's an online section. So students might say, I understood what was going on, I just didn't know where the work was. I totally didn't even realize I was supposed to be taking chapter quizzes this whole time with my access code. Or I am struggling in math. I asked my instructor for help and he said, if you don't understand math, why are you taking it online? Those kinds of things have happened through the years, and that's what we want to try to avoid. So the challenging classes, try to take those in person. Know thyself. If you're a procrastinator or if you have a lot of tech difficulties, it's not really your forte, your strength, then I would really recommend taking as much as you can in person. And then the service center stuff will be a separate video where we will look at using it as a tool for planning. But these are kind of the basics. Like, you can use it to look at your program of study, similar to like what we just did with the worksheets. That's where you can check your course placement. If you've taken the AccuPlacer, you can create your schedule and actually complete the registration process there. So those are the things that we've already kind of looked at. All of this, looking at the math pathway to figure out what you need and how you're going to accomplish it. All of those we've looked at. The math pathway chart lays it out pretty well. Again, a lot of the math is going to be explained in a separate video or can be accessed right now in your success session videos from March of 2023. We've looked at all of this, kind of planned this out. So all of this, successful planning takes help. See us if you have questions. See us if you are doing an applied degree or have kind of an idea of what you want to transfer on and do after SC4. Start with us, and then we'll tell you also see an SC4 advisor, I would say once a year. Excuse me. So that's all for now. Check the other video for how to do this planning and how to navigate the service center. Thank you.